And we're back. We've just been described as the two Muppets by the rest of the panel, which is fairly insulting, but we'll stick with that. And this is the closing plenary. And as the two Muppets, we'll decide what we're going to talk about there, Ewen.
Absolutely.
But first of all, let's welcome the other members of the panel. We've got Scott Mason. Hi, Scott.
Hi there. How are you?
Very good, thank you. Nathan Wood.
Hi, everyone.
He's another Muppet. He's the one who called us a Muppet.
He was,
yeah. So we're not forgetting that in a hurry.
He's the problem.
Will Pitt. Hi, Will.
Hi, guys. How you doing?
Very good, thank you. And Neil Breckenridge, our president. Nice to see you, Neil.
Good afternoon, guys.
Topping and tailing it, as they say, Neil. You're in at the beginning and at the end. So I'm going to start with Ewen, because he's done nearly as many sessions as me. I think probably even more. So Ewen, what was your big highlight from the plenary this time?
Well, I think I kind of quite liked the way we opened with someone like George Clark, who gave such a sort of huge overview of the really, really big picture of the COP26, and then how we moved into Kath Noakes today, who took it down to the sort of ventilation level, which is kind of us. But they were all sort of big picture stuff. But how we then, in between all that, we talked about practical solutions. And I think that's the best thing, because with COP26 going on and Greta talking about them doing lots of blah, 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 we did a lot of blah, blah, blah over the last couple of days, but quite a bit of it was focused on practical stuff. And I think that's what we should really be all about. And I felt quite optimistic about that.
Yeah, I thought he was great. He was full of energy and full of great ideas, like stopping VAT on the refurb. But I wouldn't mind betting that the thing that people take away from that was if food prices rose like house prices, a chicken would be worth £51 now. Neil, you were in. You introduced him. What did you pick up from George Clark?
I sensed a very passionate individual, but equally somebody who's frustrated, like we all are, with policy and government, and you tend to have to do things with your own back to get a movement. A bit like the Greta Thunberg's being an activist, because I think for the whole 2 days it's been a great collaboration of individuals to make success last 2 days, and that's what we're missing from government. Is collaboration between departments, collaboration with industry, collaboration with products. And that's the frustrating part of it and the funding part of it. And I think that's where we've got to go forward and look at things. We've got the skill set, we've got the talent. Yes, we've got to do more, but going forward the next, several decades, we need truer collaboration, get the right initiatives together and take it forward. And so I think George, positioned that quite well at the start of the yesterday morning. And I think all the sections built on from that. Which evidence, again, for those who aren't really into our sector enough, that we have really got the tools in our armoury, and now we need to push it forward. So no, I think George was great. He said it well. So I'm really impressed by the guy.
Nathan, I'm guessing that day 2, Kath Noakes was your highlight, or would I be wrong on that?
No, 100%. I was like a nodding dog. Everything that she was saying. But yeah, I was saying just before we went live, I was really impressed with George as well. I thought he was just a TV personality, but the guy really knows his stuff, and the passion shone through. The other points that really stuck out for me was the stop passing the buck and the value of micro and SMEs. And as an SME, I really did like that fact, and the specialism and the importance that we bring to the bigger boys in the industry. That was really nice to hear, but also really surprising. On the modern slavery side of things, dropped into that one for a bit. That was quite shocking. LED light fittings that we're all pushing ends up coming from some mine somewhere that really affects people. So yeah, but fantastic 2 days. Really enjoyed it.
Great. And Scott, did you catch any of the keynotes yesterday or today?
Unfortunately, no. I've been travelling today because I'm down in London. One of my panellists, Martin, he was up at COP26 yesterday in Edinburgh, working from the hotel, and I'm in much the same scenario today, unfortunately. So I've not picked up any of the keynotes today, no.
I've just been handed a note. I didn't understand it. Did you?
Graham Fox is the new president of the Institute of Refrigeration, David.
Wow.
Hot off the press.
Wow. That's something. So Graham, the new president.
Yeah.
Wow, that's good. That's good. He obviously did a couple of sessions this week as well. Will, what was your highlight?
Well, I only caught half of George's opening session yesterday because I had to prepare for another thing. I actually, at the start of it, I remember thinking, oh, he's got a really cool home office garden. I quite fancy having that myself. But when he started to talk about, the whole sort of COP26 and the building safety bill and everything that's going on in the industry at the moment, and he talked really passionately. It kind of got me thinking. It fired me up about what a fantastic time it is to be in engineering and be in building service engineering specifically, because there's just so much. Yes, there's some challenges ahead, and you can be quite scared by that. But when you listen to people like George and they talk about and they bring it to life, it really makes you feel proud to be part of it. And you think, yeah, do you know what? What a great time to be in this industry, and hopefully that other people feel that way as well. So that, for me, that was my kind of main takeaway, really.
The big thing I got from Kath notes this morning was that there existed a ballistic drop. So presumably if you sneeze, a ballistic. I think we've all felt one of those once in a while.
My age.
In terms of big change coming, I chaired I think about 4 sessions in a row, and each one of those was really highlighting massive change. So we did 2 sessions on Grenfell and the Building Safety Act, both of which, one from the HSE and one from about transforming building safety culture, both talked about big change coming down the line for contractors. Did anybody got anything they want to pick up on that?
Yeah, I'm happy to. Yeah, the word clerk of works returning as well. That was quite exciting, and independent commissioning. Key points that are sort of lacking in today's sector on building construction sites. The days. I am old enough to remember a clerk of works creeping up behind you and checking out your work, and you'd almost shudder in your boots, thinking, "Crikey, hope we've done this right." But yeah, that was quite exciting to hear.
Yeah, they were talking about the introduction of a new role, independent site something. I missed exactly what it was, but they'd have to cover so much nowadays, and I'm still pretty convinced that actually members will have to collate their own evidence of competence and compliance, simply so that these new role people, I think, audit a percentage of your work rather than all of it. Is that something that's coming up in the technical committee?
So there are a lot of discussions that are taking place around that whole subject. I think a lot of people are questioning, well, how do we demonstrate competence when there isn't necessarily a means to do that? So I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done, in all sorts of specific areas of what we do in terms of how you actually are demonstrating competence to clients. But it's certainly a massively critical area that keeps coming up on the agenda again and again and again.
That was something that Kath Noakes mentioned as well, about, particularly in ventilation, there needs to be more focus on enforcement and more focus on accreditation, so we get the right people doing the work. Because that's the root of the problem, isn't it? In many ways, you might have the right technical solution, but if you haven't got a way of assessing the competence of the person doing the job. And that was something that came out in our session on the housing, net zero housing. They were actually, Nigel Banks was talking about offsite fabrication of houses. And I asked him about the ventilation solutions, and he said they rejected mechanical ventilation with heat recovery because they were getting so many complaints about the systems. And that's something we've come across in the health and well-being in buildings a lot about that. So if you don't have the skills base and the competent people, then you can undermine what you're trying to do.
Interestingly as well, the session on construction playbook from Fergus Harradence from the Department of Business and Paul Morell's sessions were pretty good on the need for smarter procurement. If you want modern methods of construction, you need modern methods of procurement, and that I think holds out a great deal of hope for members. If you're procuring for value, it's got to be better. But what it really set out was that frameworks are here to stay. They're probably going to get bigger and more important and more powerful. And in the modern methods of construction, platforms are going to be something that we're all going to have to use. So standardized platforms with maybe 5 or 6 different component manufacturers you can choose from, but there's going to be greater standardization. Is that something you see, Neil?
Yeah, very much so. We touched on it yesterday morning about how we're going to upskill for industry, and definitely we're not going to get thousands and thousands come into industry overnight. It's going to be an upskilling of current people being displaced, upskilling. So you have to use metal methods of construction. There's some great companies out there who are leading the light, but we need to embrace it. We haven't got the skills or the skills in depth to keep doing what we're doing. We've got a massive shortage. It's going to get worse. We've got an aging population. That's not going to change. We can't remedy it in the next 5-10 years. It's a slow burn, unfortunately. We've got to improve the image of construction. We've got to improve the STEM process. We've got to get more diverse backgrounds into construction industry, and that's going to take time. So we have to adopt different approaches, and that's right through the whole supply chain. And so we've got to embrace it for more collaboration, and through that collaboration, we'll develop the upskilling courses that are required. So we have to embrace these things, David.
Nathan, were you holding your hand up there?
I was, yeah, thanks. I heard Doug Booker say that we've got to stop preaching to the choir. We are the building engineering services sector. We know about the problem. It's how we break down the barriers between us and the schools and the colleges. Because certainly when I was at college, if you went into engineering, it was almost like you would be a car mechanic. But where that's changed massively in the years, to the point where the digitalisation of the sector. You don't have to get your hands dirty. You don't even have to leave home to do things, So I think there's a big drive now for us as the industry as a whole to break down the barriers between us and them being Joe Public.
Scott's got his hand up.
Scott?
Yeah. So I would completely second those thoughts. I mean, not too long ago, you think of engineers and everyone thought the glamorous route. You go and get a job at Land Rover or some car manufacturer, but now genuinely I believe that building services, it really is, with everything that's currently happening, all the advancements and how it's working at the moment, how everything's so exciting and cutting edge and critical, it's now the glamorous path. So we definitely need to do our bit to make sure that people are aware of what it is we're doing, what we need to achieve, and how to onboard people, and the STEM piece is just so important to that.
One of the sessions I caught was from Neil Carberry, who runs the Employment Confederation. He did it with Helen Hewlett. He was talking about this talent retention is going to be a massive thing. It will not go away. There is no chance of it going away, and that every company now needs to develop a strategic planning framework for their workforce and start thinking individually about what it is the workforce wants. And that kind of struck a note with me, because I was with one of our major chief executives last week, who said, if we send someone to a site and it's not a good site, it's not well organised, it's not clean, it's not good facilities, people don't want to work there. And also people don't want to work weekends anymore. They don't want to do these things, and they're just not doing it. So we will all have to adapt and flex. Will, do you see that willingness to change in the industry?
Absolutely. I think any good employer has realised that if they want to recruit and retain the best staff, then they've got to have that approach and that flexibility. And I am seeing it. I think the world is changing, and actually we've been able to collaborate over the last year and a half really, really well working remotely. In fact, some of the work that I've been doing, with BESA and other trade associations and institutions, has been done entirely over Teams, and it's been, it's worked and it's worked well. So yes, in answer to your question, I think that they are realising that they need to do that to retain the right people, and I'm seeing positive signs.
Anyone else want to chip in on that one?
I love the fact I'm not an engineer. Well, I've worked with engineers most of my career. I just think you're all great, because I'm not clever enough to be an engineer, but and I find you all very inspiring. But you don't promote yourselves very well, and I guess that's that's part of my job, is to promote this wonderful world of engineering And George Clark just kind of enthused everybody about what he's doing with young school kids to get them enthusiastic. And I think this is a great opportunity to showcase what you guys can do. You're at the heart of all these big solutions. So I think that's my feel on it, that things can change. And I think there's an opportunity because there's a lot of bad things. A lot of bad things have happened, but they've given opportunities. We talked about barriers and opportunities, and kind of everything's an opportunity now for this sector, and a way to enthuse people about engineering and building engineering services, particularly.
Hi, who's just joined us? Sorry.
Then it looks like Russell.
It's
Russell.
Jones from Mitsubishi.
Hi, Russell.
Russell.
Hi, sorry, it took me a while to get on.
No, that's okay. We just concluded it's all your fault. So can you answer the last question?
Yeah, absolutely. I caught the tail end of that, and some of what I've been doing today is listening to colleagues who are trying to contribute to things like COP26, and particularly one of the things they were talking about was the need for more heat pumps, which we can't do without the installers and without the sort of the training. So it kind of picks up on what you were just saying there. I think we as an industry need to come together to help new blood into the industry, to train them, to get government to support that, so that we can meet the challenges that we know are coming.
Yeah, actually, that was a point in the Young Engineers session, chaired by the President-elect Kevin
Mitchell,
of CIBSE, and I mean that was truly inspiring. And you were saying earlier, Ewen, that we need hope. Just listen to that session, and there'll be plenty of hope. You said you've been around quite a few of the sessions today, Russell. What was your highlight?
Oh gosh, what I'm loving about what you guys are doing is you're bringing manufacturers like us together and others with a common interest. It's not about trying to push the Mitsubishi Electric brand. It's about trying to look at the issues and decide how we can move things forward. Because if we help each other, we're all going to succeed. So I think it was just the collaboration that in a number of the sessions and the contributions from that we saw from some of the not only the contributors but the viewers as well. So I think overall it does give me hope. I think it's just the word you just touched on there, David. That's
great. I think, Nathan, you were in a session that I listened into from Dassault Systems about fluid dynamics. And I caught one about Hamworthy heating on hydrogen. I'm always amazed on the webinar, actually big audiences for really niche topics. We get very, very big audiences. So this is a great medium to actually find these people and get them to come and talk about stuff. But the level of detail was, I thought, fantastic. Nathan, you were there. It was a great session.
Is it Dassault Systems and Giovanni and his team? Yeah.
Yeah, Giovanni
awesome.
And his team, yeah.
Yeah, really, really good. It was a shame one of the guys kept dropping out, but it was the level of detail and what they had in place was phenomenal. I'd love to get involved with it more, and that's the sort of thing that we need. And they were using their thermal dynamics and computer modelling to prove efficacy of UV systems and other air purification systems. So it wasn't just about the airflow. It's doing a lot for companies that would look for the practical applications of exactly how efficient their air purifiers are or their systems are, the clean air tech that they're looking to sell. So whilst we're looking for certification and guidance for clean air tech, what they've already got in place would be a great place for people to start, to say, look, this is what we think it does, but we've had it independently tested. That word again, independent testing. Yeah, that was probably my highlight, actually. I really enjoyed that last one. It could have been longer. I'd like to have dug deeper into it.
Yeah, I think we'll do a bit more on that. And I think probably I'm going to be saying, I think we'll do a bit more on that. We'll do another one on that, do a series of stuff.
I like the contrast though, David, because you're talking there about quite a clever, cutting-edge technology solution. And yet in our session we just had a few minutes ago on buildings as safe havens, Jenny and Lauren from Lineker FM were talking about getting back to basics. And it's all about maintenance. And actually they actually put a practical spin on something that Kath Noakes talked about, which was saying that actually a lot of the solutions we already have are perfectly good. They just need to be better monitored, better looked after, maintained properly. And then once you've done that, you've got back to basics, which was the message that definitely came out of our session. Then you can look at adding these great new breakthrough technologies. And I thought that was a strong message to come out of the 2 days.
So I started it by tenuously linking the appointment of Antonio Conte to Tottenham and the bad the awful position that it gives me, which is one of hope, and it's always the hope that kills you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So good. I'm going to go around all of you now and just say, in a year's time, what do you hope the industry will be better for? What do you think would have happened that will improve the industry from where we are now? I'll start with Will.
Oh, I knew you'd come to me first. 1 year. You couldn't have asked that.
When we're at the conference in person next year and we're standing at the bar having just finished having a pint, what would you say that, wow, that's a difference? If you think 3 years ago to where we are now, 2 years ago now, you wouldn't have thought of the pandemic with you, but
for me, for me, it is. I think Neil mentioned earlier on what has changed massively in the last couple of years, and I think we will do a lot more of in the next year, is collaborating with other like-minded institutions and bodies. So, we're working really closely with CIBSE and with BISRIA and with all sorts of other institutions, to achieve a common goal. And I think as BESA, we need to do that. So that's where I hope we do more of that. So in 12 months' time, I hope that's the conversation that we're having, and I'm sure it will be.
Great, thanks. Scott?
That was a brilliant point, and to effectively add to it in a way, I suppose, I would hope that in 12 years' time, I think what we're doing is absolutely fantastic, and from a collaboration piece, that should continue to grow. But I think from a cross-section of the industry, working together at every level of the building services supply chain to make sure that things are working more effectively and efficiently would be a beautiful thing to have, just to get that continuous flow to streamline and make projects work as they should do.
And Nathan?
I'd like to see more funding for apprenticeships coming into the industry, rather than incentivising the company, giving them thousands of pounds to take them on. Actually allow that cash to go directly to the people that are looking to get that training. I think we need to bolster the wages, because having a proper apprenticeship for 3 or 4 years on low money is difficult for anybody to take on. And there is a reluctance. People want a quick win these days. They could earn more working at Morrison's. We need to incentivise them to come into this industry, and I think that starts with their pocket at their age. So, funding and training for apprenticeships would be mine.
And Neil?
I think for me, I'd like to be in a place in 12 months' time where we've got the full life cycle of a project, of a building, more thought about. I mean by this, for me, compliance and competence. We had a good session on the fire dampers, and yet even a simple thing as a fire damper, and I say simple thing, is we don't have an over life cycle value of that, and that is neglected very quickly. It's only when we have a problem that actually realise you can't get to a fire damper, you can't maintain it, you can't access it. So even the simplest level, if we can improve the compliance and competency of what we're installing today, and we get the building owners and users understanding the importance of the life cycle of what we do, I think it can be a short win, a quick win. Come with the building regulator, come with Carco Works. Do the great things, we'll take the time, the collaboration, the great technologies, but if we just start getting competency right and compliance, I'd be in a lot better place in 12 months' time.
Russell?
Yeah, I think reiterating a lot of what's been said, sort of the phrase stronger together, I think what this event has shown, and BESA over the last year, is we will achieve more if we all collaborate and approach these things together. And then the other thing I think I would like to see and hope we can see, touching on Nathan's point, is not only more support for apprenticeships, but more, how do we get more females? Let's make this more representative of society in general. So I think working together and pushing government and supporting government initiatives that are worth supporting, but trying to build on the work that we can do together rather than our own sometimes narrow fields.
And over to you, Ewen.
Well, thanks, David. Well, I think I will see in the next 12 months massive progress on the ventilation front. I think we're going to see some big improvements because I think the awareness is now so high. Kath Noak said she'd never thought she'd see the day when the Prime Minister was talking about ventilation. And I thought, and then you asked the crucial question, how do we make sure ventilation contractors are part of the big conversation? And I thought that's really important. If we get the practical people, the people who know how these things work, how they're applied, why they don't work, and that sort of thing, we're going to make some big progress. I see big progress in a year's time.
I'm hoping that as more detail on the Building Safety Act comes through, it'll start to drive a greater understanding on competence and compliance. And that will help us not only make buildings safer, make the whole building process better, because I think it will help deal with build and design and value engineering. And it will drive all the other areas like the need for skills and apprenticeships and help us to address net zero. So on that optimistic note from everybody, that's our time, I'm afraid, on the discussion. Thank you all guys for joining it. I'm going to do the final thing, which is to thank our sponsors again, because actually they've been really great. They've not only sponsored us, but actually given us their support throughout, and some great roundtables and great sponsorship of speakers. So thanks firstly to Mitsubishi Electric, who were our headline sponsor, but also SWEP, SBS, Roperhurst, Mighty, Swegon, Hanworthy Heating, Dassault Systems, Trimble, Speakertech, and Marsh. And final thank you to all those who presented, chaired, and attended. Thanks for coming. I've got to thank Charlie Pierpoint and Claire Watson in the marketing team. They've been doing all the work in the background, not appeared on a screen today, I don't think. But thank you to the two of them and to their team behind. And finally, cheers. And here's to a better industry. And 12 months' time, we'll be standing at the bar at this point saying cheers and looking forward to an event. Thank you.
And the next round's on David.
Cheers.